My question was about what our attitude towards practice should be like. So, to elaborate just a little bit, there are days when the practice um, is intense. It happens by itself. I don't feel like I'm um, making any effort from my side. And the fruits are also immediately available. And there are days when it's not so intense. It's cloudy, you know. Even if I sit to practice, they're just thoughts coming in. Mind is just going after the thoughts. I can sit for an hour, but it's not. Uh, it doesn't bear fruit, and it's just yeah. It just feels like I'm sitting, just like any other activity. Um, so, what should my attitude towards practice be like? Is it one where I still consistently sit, or when it is intense, I go with it and just do more of it, and when it's not so, it's fine and not suffer the fact that my practice is not good?
Yeah, that's a great practical question. Very good practical question. So the answer varies from person to person. So it's a difficult one because I would encourage you to experiment and find out what works for you. But even that advice is not always good advice. I think in general terms, it's the advice I want to give you there. Because some people, it just needs to be every day. Because if you stop doing it every day, then you go off the track. You see? I'm a big fan of striking when the iron's hot. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That means when that sattvic mood comes your way, take advantage of it. When the inspiration to practice, which is when you get those lovely practice sessions, occurs, then go with it. There are going to be times where, as you say, and you describe it very nicely, it's just like you're sitting there, thoughts are there, there's no penetration, no depth of feeling, no silence, and it's just, there's no depth. That's still fine. That's still fine. And if you are attentive, or let's use a different word, if you're curious, if you're inquisitive, you'll discover there's a reason why. There's a reason why those sessions are like that. And you can they can be transformed through understanding and curiosity, rather than just trying to push forward with the practice. You can do a different type of practice, which is a more of a psychological type practice, where you look into it and say, well, why is it like that? You can start asking questions. Why? What's going on? What are the factors? What are the causes for why this session is not so good, another session is not? Have a think. It could be something in your environment. It could be something you're worried or stressed about outside of the practice session. Or it could be the way you're approaching the practice session, your psychology, your attitude, your assumptions. So that's two things we've said so far. One is find out what works for you. Second of all, you can inquire into cause and effect on a psychological level, on an environmental level. Third thing your question is, what is the attitude towards practice? Third thing I could tell you is that often, sometimes, the attitude to practice is, okay, I know the practice. I know what to do. I'm going to do it now. I'm going to sort this out. What is it now? It's April. Okay, by June, I'm going to realize the self. Okay, where's my calendar? I'm going to write my objectives down. I'm going to put my, lycra gym outfit on. I'm going to get pumped up. I'm going to do this. Let's do this. Okay, let's get this done.
I've actually done that.
You've done that with the lycra, outfit and everything. No,
No, just the calendar dates.
but you got the feeling, didn't you? And I said, yeah. You're going to the gym. You're going to the spiritual gym. You got your targets. You're gonna be, I don't know, lifting 300 kilograms. Now, that you're gonna do your PB, your personal best, or whatever. That kind of thing. Yeah. Very natural attitude. Very natural, normal attitude to have, because the mind is your friend, right? And the mind wants you to be enlightened, so the mind's going to do it. This is the trick. This is the way the mind thinks. It doesn't. The mind just wants to keep you trapped. You don't. It doesn't. It will never tell you that. And it's a natural progression from the way we do things in the material world, because it's a strategy that works in the material world, but it's not a strategy that works in the spiritual world, because we're already the self. This brings me on to my next piece of advice for you. Have faith you are already the self at the beginning of your practice session. Beginning of your practice session. You are not trying to attain the self. Never think I'm trying to get to self-realization. You're already self-realized. Remember I said that at the beginning of Abhishek's question. You're already the self. If you know you exist, you are self-realized. So you don't need to do any practice for self-realization. You are the self. Doesn't matter what you do, what you don't do, you're the self. You're fine. You're perfect. Have this understanding in you somehow. Have this, trust it in faith. Take it in faith. Yeah. The purpose of practice is just to remove the ignorance. The ignorance is only in thinking. And ignorance only exists as thought. And it's the particular idea or concept, I am the body mind. What Ramana calls the I thought, what we can call the ego, what we can call ignorance, what we can call delusion, illusion, is the root. It's the root illusion. Only exists in thinking, right? So if we don't pay attention to thinking, can ignorance exist? It cannot. It cannot. If we pay attention to thinking, then ignorance creeps in the back door. If you start saying, oh, how am I going to do this now? What have you done? You've paid attention to the devil. But you don't think you don't think, oh gosh, I've paid attention to the devil. You think, I'm thinking, I'm trying to figure it out. That's the problem we'd make. That's the mistake we make, sorry. Or problem we make as well. Do you see how subtle it is? Because you've already strayed from Ramana's teaching. Ramana's teaching is strike down the thought. Yeah? And what you do is like, oh, let me just have a think about that first. So you see why Ramana's words, the words of the teacher, the words of the guru, who's free, are so important. We read them, but it's very difficult for most people to follow them because we're constantly paying attention to our thoughts. What's another word for paying attention to your thoughts? It's thinking. If you're paying attention to your thoughts, we call that thinking.
I should have a just quick follow-up. You used the word attention a little bit. Just like the thought and body and mind are not me, is the attention also not me?
Yes and no. But don't worry about that. Basically, what happens is when the attention is going towards any object, gross or subtle, we can say it's not you. We can call that the mind or the ego. But as soon as it stops attending to second or third persons, meaning any object, thinking, it kind of settles into itself, becomes collected. And that is the self. Because really everything is the self. So when we say not me, me, these are all provisional statements we're saying. So the attention is you. But when it pays attention to thinking, it's as if you become transformed from the self into the body mind. You've been transformed from infinity to finite. Yeah? From vast to small. You've suddenly transformed yourself magically into this small thing, the body mind. It appears. Because you're paying attention to thinking. When you take your attention away from that thinking, suddenly you're the vast. The vastness. Brahman, the self. So that was the third piece of advice, is know you're the self. Come away from thinking. Another piece of advice for you. Got a few here, got a list. Another piece of advice, to prevent those bad sessions, practice sessions, okay? I've said start with the idea that if you can get the feeling as well, I'm already the self, okay? Another thing to do is to start with bhakti. Have a picture of Guru Ramana there. Look at his face. Allow his form to speak to you. Allow yourself to feel love for him. Or if Ramana is not your guru, something you feel inspired by. If you have a guru, if you have a divine image you feel inspired by, then use that. You know. Again, if you don't relate to God, maybe you can have a person. You know. Sometimes you can think of a child that's dear to you in your life, a loved one, a family member. Allow love at the beginning of your practice. So we practice bhakti at the beginning of the practice, and we practice jnana at the beginning of the practice. Jnana, I am the self. Now, I'm not doing this practice to get self-realization. I am the self. I don't need this. No practice can give me self-realization, because I'm already self-realized. I'm already the self. The practice is just to get rid of this wrong, little tiny wrong notion. So there's a few things I'll give you there. Bit of a shopping list. I hope that helps.
That helps a lot.
Good. Very nice to see and speak to you, Swati.
Likewise.
Thank you.